Entrepreneurship did feel like jumping from a, how do I say, perfectly safe cruise ship into a speedboat.
Author Anuranjita or entrepreneur Anuranjita? Who would win in a debate with
I
herself?
think the author definitely would definitely start strong, well researched, sharp, full of data
Hmm.
points and references. But then the entrepreneur in me would interrupt and say, "Enough theory, let's just do it." And it would end in a stalemate with me writing about the debate while also launching a business model around it. Entrepreneur, you are faced with a lot of uncertainty, endless questions, sleepless nights. But with that also comes the freedom, and freedom to dream without approvals, without getting caught up with bureaucracy, freedom to
Yeah.
experiment without legacy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Careers with me, Shivani. Season 2 kicked off with an incredible response to our very first episode with Sahil. Thank you all for tuning in, sharing your takeaways, and keeping the conversation alive. It's amazing to see how much you all connected with it. And we're on a roll. Today, I'm joined by a powerhouse leader, a woman who continues to inspire countless professionals, Anuranjita Kumar. Welcome, Anuranjita.
Thank you so much. Real pleasure to be here. I did look at your first episode, and Shivani, one is of course Sahil, and also the way you kind of brought the right experiences and the learnings and the lessons from his experience were truly motivating for me. So thank you for having me. Absolutely privileged to be here.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation. For the audience about Anuranjita, so from steering global boardrooms as the CHRO of Citibank to jumping into the wild ride of entrepreneurship with VAs to authoring two thought provoking books, she's basically lived three careers in one lifetime. It's an achievement which is way beyond anybody's expectations. And we're not just talking careers, we're talking about reinvention, inclusion, and building workplaces that don't just look future ready, but they really feel future ready. So, if episode 1 was about balance, episode 2 is about reinventing the rules altogether. So, grab your coffee. This one will make you rethink what's possible in your own career journey. So let's begin, Anuranjita, with our first segment, which is not about Anuranjita, the author. It's not about Anuranjita, the ex corporate honcho. And it's not about Anuranjita, the entrepreneur. It's about Anuranjita as a person. Okay.
Sure.
So these are some rapid fire questions. So, of course, very short answers, crisp answers. And then we move on to, the conversation for today. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready, but can I be less crisp because I like to talk? And you know what? You've just
you
given me the task over coffee, and I hope people are relaxed because I'm actually having a glass of water to keep my throat going. But
okay?
I'm as concise as I can be.
Okay, great. So we'll have a slightly more detailed conversation in this segment too, which is the core conversation. But happy to hear from you on the rapid fire questions, also maybe a little longer, but do try and keep it as crisp as you can. Okay,
Of course.
ready? All right. So first question to you is morning yoga, calm, or late night brainstorming? What powers your best ideas?
Late night brainstorming, 100%, because I think I probably sleep at 12 noon. So late night brainstorming is
Okay.
what keeps me calm.
Okay, great. Okay, second question. Author Anuranjita or entrepreneur Anuranjita? Who would win in a debate with herself?
Oh my God, that's a tough one. But I think the author definitely would definitely start strong, well researched, sharp, full of
Hmm.
data points and references. But then the entrepreneur in me would interrupt and say, "Enough theory, let's just do it." And it would end in a stalemate with me writing about the debate while also launching a business model around it.
Superb. That's a very balanced answer. And that is something one would expect from somebody who's been in the corporate to becoming an entrepreneur. And of course, the author, comes in between. Very balanced one. Okay. If you could invite three people to your ideal leadership dinner, who would
Mm.
they be and why?
Oh, that's a lovely one. If I could, the three people would be a person I really admire and get motivated by her insights and books is Maya Angelou, because
Oh,
every table needs wisdom, poetry, and a
yes.
reminder that leadership is about lifting others with grace. Second
Yeah,
one would be
wonderful.
the entrepreneur, Steve Jobs, to bring in the vision, creativity, and an unrelenting obsession with
Okay.
simplicity we've tried to embrace in ways. And the last one will be our own Mahatma Gandhi to remind us that true influence comes from humility and moral courage.
Awesome. Very nice. What a choice from Maya Angelou to Steve Jobs to Mahatma Gandhi. Awesome. Awesome. Great. Okay, last question in this segment. So if you could describe We Aces spirit in one emoji or, by the title of any Bollywood movie, what would it be? It could be an emoji or a Bollywood movie, whatever you want to.
Emoji, the rocket, because VS isn't just about going upwards, it's also about breaking gravity. Every launch
Awesome.
that we have done takes a lot of courage, little fear, a lot of fire, and that's how we think about careers too. So it's not about a straight climb, but a powerful takeoff again and again and again.
Superb. Wow, you're on a roll completely. I don't want to stop this. This is fun. This is more fun than what we're going to talk.
Oh, be careful what
But
you wish for. Okay, that's why I said, tell me to stop when I need to stop, Shivani.
yeah, but we are in it for some core conversation around careers and of course around your experiences. So would you like to, before we start, and would you like to talk about what VACE is and what you all are doing on that platform? I think it'll help the audience to know a little bit more about it.
Sure. So thank you for that, Shivani. VACE is a global digital platform for
Hmm.
coaching and mentoring. And I think many entrepreneurs go into a bit of reflection to solve a problem that they have experienced. So being a
Yeah.
corporate leader, I have been I have coached and mentored and been mentored. But I felt that it was a very informal process. And as a result, it was just left to each one to do on their own. So
Hmm.
for us, it was about digitizing that journey. And I think we start from two perspectives. One is for the companies who try and hire the best talent that they can, and then very often struggle to get the best out of them.
Hmm.
And how do we make people more productive? And for people or individuals, every employee, I mean, let's start on a positive note, every employee wants to
Hmm.
bring the best of themselves to the
Yeah.
table. So they are
Yeah.
great for them. So how do we get these two entities to meet and create magic as far as performance goes? So that's really what VACE does. We
Wonderful.
are now over 4 years old. We work across 14 countries. We work with 60 companies, and we have coached over 50,000 leaders across the world.
Wow. Wow. That's very, very inspiring. And the reason I asked you to speak about VAs is because, it was a sort of a precursor to my next question to you because you started something. You took the plunge into entrepreneurship, after serving a stint at a very senior role. You were at a very senior role. You were the CHRO at Citibank. When somebody thinks, and there are enough number of people today in the corporate world who think of taking that plunge into entrepreneurship, but because of that position, of that paycheck, of that power, or whatever you may want to call it, there is hesitation. So my question to you is, this was a very bold pivot, right?
Yeah.
From being a CHRO at a very prestigious bank like Citibank to getting into full-time entrepreneurship. So how did it feel to switch from a structured global leadership role to the uncertainties or the, as I call it, the madness of entrepreneurship? And what advice would you give to senior leaders who are considering something similar, a similar leap?
Hmm. Right. So I think switching from City or NatWest, where one was leading the HR function, to
Hmm.
entrepreneurship did feel like jumping from a, how do I say, perfectly safe cruise ship into a speedboat, which I don't
Correct.
know how to steer. Right.
Yeah.
So metaphorically, that's
Hmm.
exactly how it was. And I
Yeah.
think working with big companies, there were structures, there were systems, there were
Yeah.
teams. And as an entrepreneur, you are faced with a lot of uncertainty, endless questions, sleepless nights. But with that also comes the freedom, and freedom to dream without approvals, without getting caught up with bureaucracy, freedom to
Yeah.
experiment without legacy. So I think for me, it was terrifying and liberating at the same
Mm.
time. I do remember that time in 2020 when I was actually contemplating. To be very honest with all of you, I was scared. I mean, leaving a
Mm.
very safe environment, paid
Yeah.
well, good team, I just was really worried about what if it didn't work out. Till a mentor asked me the question that,
Mm.
what's holding you back? And I said, if it doesn't work out, there'll be so much at stake. I would have given up so much. And he
Yeah.
turned around and asked me, what if it does? Right?
Yeah.
So I was so paralyzed with fear that I wasn't thinking about the upside. If it works, what does that
Mm.
mean? That one question
Mm.
pivoted my head. And he turned around
Mm.
and he said, if it doesn't work out, you go find yourself another job. I mean, how problematic is that?
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
sometimes, on paper, you can see I was at the peak of my career. But here's the truth. Sometimes the peak can also feel like a plateau. And I remember sitting
Mm.
eating, thinking, is this it? Is this all my, 28 years of work leading to that relentlessness kept whispering in my ear until I
Yeah.
could no longer ignore it. And when I stepped out, it felt like a well-lit, highway to wander into
Yeah.
a trail, you're just holding a torch or a lantern. So the early days of VS were humbling. Suddenly there's no brand,
Mm.
no visiting card backing you up, no
Yeah.
teams, no deep pockets. I hadn't raised my money till then. There were moments
Yeah.
when I asked myself, did I really just walk away into this chaos? Did I do the right thing? But then there were also moments of pure joy when I saw the
Mm.
first client walk in, the first person taking a bet,
Mm.
my first fundraise, and let me tell you, I went to 40
Mm.
people, three took a bet on me. And
Mm.
and then you chip it away gradually. And I
Mm.
think that's what mattered. And I think my advice to leaders considering a similar leap is don't confuse certainty with
Mm.
security, right?
Mm.
Don't confuse your identity with the company brand, right?
Yeah.
And there is a time where that works, and there's a lot I learned working with the employees I did, and I'm eternally grateful to them. But my identity is my identity. And
Yeah.
in corporate life, certainty is given to you. There's a job title, there's a paycheck, there's the office. But the real security comes from knowing you can reinvent yourself, that you can build,
Yeah.
you can adapt and thrive even when
Yeah.
scaffold is gone. Today, when you look at with AI taking over, every day I
Mm.
see an announcement, so many jobs lost, right?
Mm. Yes.
So the
Yes.
question is today, if you didn't have that job, who would you be? Is the
Yeah.
question you need to be asking yourself. So
Yeah.
I think, a lot, I can go on this question itself, but excuse me, entrepreneurship isn't about leaving stability for chaos. It's
Mm.
leaving someone else's vision for creating
Mm.
your own. And 4 years down the line, having gone through the ups and downs that I did, I think when I was standing at the crossroads 3 years back or 4 years back,
Mm.
I was
Mm.
asking myself that, in some time to come, will you be proud of the story you're writing? And for me,
Mm.
walking away wasn't leaving something behind. It was
Mm.
about walking towards the life I wanted to create. And that's been really fulfilling.
Superb. That is so inspiring. And what I love about what you said is, and that's something that a lot of people who are budding entrepreneurs go through. That talk in the mind, that clock ticking in the mind, that what if it does not work? And you were fortunate enough to have a mentor, and you more than that, I think you chose to listen to that mentor who said that what if it does. But I think a lot of times people do tend to get overpowered by the uncertainty, the negative part of what if it doesn't work, what if it doesn't work. But were you also discouraged by by people? Why I'm asking you this is because when I took the decision, I was discouraged by a lot of people that what is this? I mean, you're at a senior position, you're giving up everything. It's been so I left the corporate world after 12 years of working. So I know you left it after much longer, but um, the question was, why would you want to do something like that when you have everything going for you? Did you experience anything like that?
Yeah, plenty. Plenty.
Plenty.
Starting
Yeah.
with my own parents sometimes and my mom. And
Yes.
I think it came from a duty of care.
Yeah.
Not that they were discouraging me,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was like, you have worked so hard for all of this,
Yeah.
and it felt
Yeah.
like you're giving this away and walking into oblivion where
Yeah.
they were worried that what would happen to me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I did have well wishers, and I
Mm.
do grateful to them because they were, as I said, it was duty of care. And I
Mm.
think the fear of, you know,
The
if
unknown.
it doesn't work out for her,
Yeah. Yeah.
would she have lost too much? I think the
Mm.
point about if you work for a long time, and for a lot of
Mm.
entrepreneurs out there,
Mm.
trust your gut and trust your
Mm.
experience. I mean, for me, it was 27 years of working. And when
Mm.
store, look, if in 2 years this doesn't work, you can go figure yourself out another job
Exactly.
in the market,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Today, today's environment is very different than when we were
Mm.
kids, where not
Mm.
having a job was a stigma,
Yeah.
not being employed was a stigma. Today, it isn't. I mean, you have so many role models just in India where people, young kids, have made unicorns, and the whole
Yeah.
ecosystem has changed. So I think you have, as they say in Gen Z,
Mm.
you only live once. So if you are a
Yeah.
YOLO, then give yourself that freedom to experiment once.
Yeah.
Nothing can go wrong. The only advice I would say is when you
Mm.
step out of the uncertain world, make
Mm.
sure you kind of have a sense of timing of how long you
Mm.
want to experiment, and
Mm.
some financial security,
Yeah.
because that's important. You have
Yeah.
something to go back onto. So just to check your tank, how full it is and how far you can go in this car,
Yeah.
and because those things are important. uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and that's what I would recommend to people. But of course, but I think it was just a bet. It was also for me the moment I started thinking about, if I give myself 2.5 years,
Mm.
if it doesn't work, I can go figure myself out. Maybe I get paid a
Yeah.
little less, maybe the job will be smaller, but I'll figure
Yeah.
myself out.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
big consolation to myself. And that's what kept
Yeah.
me going for the next
Absolutely.
2 years, even when things were sometimes not working out as I had
Mm.
envisaged to be.
Yeah. I think that is something that it's a lot of self-talk, I feel. How much ever people may try to discourage you or encourage you. It's both sides of the story. Some people would really go for it. Yes, go for it. They'll be batting for you on that thought. And some people would be like, "What are you doing? Why are you giving away all of this?" So I think it's a lot about what you are talking to yourself, and how far you can stay away from both the ends, because you don't want to be overly positive as well, because you don't know how it will pan out, and you also don't want to not give it a try because somebody else is asking you not to do it. So I think as an entrepreneur, a lot of self talk, a lot of self motivation, a lot of self reflection is what keeps you really going, because you need to, like you said, you need to trust your gut. And
Absolutely.
I also think that the point that you made around uh, having a cushion. So I always say that it's good to follow your passion, but passion does not pay bills. So if
That's
you
right.
want to follow your passion, do a calculated assessment of whether you are in the position to take that plunge right now or not. So of course, the financial part is extremely important. If you have support, if you have financial backing, then it's worth taking the risk, because any business comes with a risk. That's the biggest characteristic of
But
any
Shivani, I mean,
business. Yeah.
if you think about it today, even in the corporate world, it's a
Yeah.
perceived security, isn't it?
Yeah,
Who knows what
yeah,
will happen tomorrow, right?
absolutely.
Today, even the
Yeah,
corporates, I mean, there are cycles in
yeah,
a business, and you shed the whole.
absolutely.
So you think you're safe, is the
Yeah.
only way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's again that security in your mind. It's all there in your mind, and it's all the self-talk that you do. And you're right, with all the news about layoffs and mass layoffs happening in the biggest brands of the world. Yes, it's not safe. It's not secure even in corporates right now. But I think. That paycheck at the end of the month is something that a lot of people tend to, associate with security, and fairly so, because it is a fixed income. But having said that, again, I feel that entrepreneurship, uh, if you're wanting to follow that passion, and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, a lot of people think that what will happen after that. But I think what you said, you always have the job to come back to fall back upon. So,
Yes,
and that is something that I also, when I started, that was also a comfort at the back of my mind, that I have experience. I worked in corporates. If this doesn't work out, I'll always have the opportunity to go back.
absolutely.
And there's nothing like a stigma now that if you don't have, if you and honestly, I interview people, and if somebody tells me that they took a career break to build a business on their own, and for whatever reason it didn't work, honestly, I hold those people, in a lot of respect, because it takes guts. It tells me about your entrepreneurial spirit. You wanted to take that chance, and you wanted to build something on your own. So for me, that's a big green flag. And I'm sure that is the case for a lot of recruiters, and a lot of companies today are very open to taking people back, from an entrepreneurial stint. So absolutely agree on that part. Anu, with your global, background, global banking background, and now your entrepreneurial journey, what's that one lesson about navigating these transitions? Transitions can happen within the organization. It could be a career pivot like yours. What do you think is, that lesson that people can learn about transition, which applies to not only senior professionals, but actually anybody who's standing at a career crossroad?
So I think one of the biggest lessons that I have learned about navigating transition is that careers are not ladders, they're like jungle
Mm.
gyms, right?
Yeah.
Gone are the days where you say, okay, from this level to this level to this level, right?
Mm.
You can
Mm.
acquire different skills. I was in HR, I moved out of HR, I came back into
Mm.
HR. So I think life has evolved. It's about,
Mm.
you can reach to the top from any direction or any path that you take in an organization. And
Mm.
on the ladder, there's only one direction that looks respectable, which is straight up. But on a jungle
Yeah.
gym, you can move sideways, you can hang upside,
Yeah.
climb down a little to go up a little or swing across. And that's what real careers look like. They're
Yeah.
messy, unpredictable, and they're often non-linear. And
Yeah.
in all of that is where the growth happens. So for me, I moved on horizontal roles as well in my previous employers, and I
Mm.
moved up and I've kind of moved, horizontally again. So I've lived
Yeah.
this in my own journey. And when I moved to India, to Europe, then to US, and later back to Asia,
Mm.
every transition meant letting go of an identity that I
Yeah.
had kept to build. And each time I had to prove myself all over again. So I remember that in one of my early international assignments, sitting in a senior MD room where I was not only the youngest, but also the only woman and the only person of color. It was
Mm.
intimidating. And for a while,
Mm.
I thought maybe I don't belong here. But what I
Mm.
discovered, that transitions stretch you beyond belonging.
Mm.
They kind of force you to create a space for
Mm.
yourself. And here's
Mm.
the truth, transitions are uncomfortable because they ask us to shed the way we work or shed our
Yeah.
skin. You leave behind certainty, you leave behind routines, sometimes even what you thought of yourself, your own self-image. But in return, you get perspective, you get to be
Yeah.
more resilient, and a toolkit you couldn't have built any other way. Today, I'm an entrepreneur. But the fact that I was able to move around and transition across multiple geographies,
Mm.
has really added to what I do in VAs today, right?
Mm.
And hence, when I left the corporate to start VAs, it wasn't just a professional transition. It was a deeply personal one for me. I had to
Mm.
move from a mindset of I represent a global institution to the fact that I represent only myself and this
Yeah.
little fragile dream. And that shift kind of humbled me. But it also
Mm.
taught me that your identity isn't fixed, it evolves. So
Yeah.
my message on transition or navigating the transition is don't fear the crossroads. Fear
Mm.
standing still in one place, okay? Because
Mm.
then the
Absolutely.
world is kind of going by. And
Yeah.
transitions don't break your career. They expand it in many ways. And,
Mm.
they don't really erase you who you were. And sometimes they help you meet who you really are.
Absolutely.
So transitions are fun. And I think if I wasn't moving around as much as I did, I think on an
Mm.
average, must have every 3 to 4 years, I did a different job or a different
Mm.
geography. I wouldn't
Mm.
be who I am today.
Awesome. And that pretty much sums up how important it is to experience transitions and not be fearful of it. And you made a very interesting comment about careers not being, careers shouldn't be looked upon as ladders. Careers can be vertical and careers can be horizontal. In fact, a very interesting, thought that I had when you were speaking that was that in my experience, I have seen that people who've had the maximum horizontal movements are also the people who've had maximum vertical movements.
Hmm.
I don't know
Possible.
if you agree with that, because when you move horizontally, your horizon expands, and you move horizontally because somewhere the organization has seen that potential in you that you can take up more. And I think once you expand horizontally, or once your career expands horizontally, I think the vertical growth is much faster because, then you become one of the key talent, or one of the key resources for an organization, just because you handled an entire gamut of things. So, as you were speaking, I was just thinking. And I can think of many examples of people that I've worked with who've whose careers grew horizontally first, but after that the vertical growth was really, really fast. And so to your point, I think careers are not ladders at all now. And if you want to look at it as a ladder, you first of all
Also,
have to
sorry.
have a very
Yeah.
clear base for the
Sorry
ladder.
to interrupt,
A
but
good
there
base.
is a song called Sunscreen, which my husband introduced me to, and I really like the lyrics of this song. So, for the audience
Mhm.
who are listening, it's by Baz Luhrmann, who's an Australian director, producer.
Okay.
And there's a line in that song that in the end, the race is with yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I mean, we
Yeah.
become such victims and of our, corporate identity, ki
Yeah.
VP, the MD, director. But in the end, when you look back, the race is with yourself. It's not with a peer.
Yes.
I mean, that's very momentarily. So
Yeah.
whether you move horizontally, you move vertically, the
Mm.
question is, are you growing? Are you
Yeah.
racing ahead of what you're doing in life? And it's a lesson I learned late. So I would
Mm.
urge people who are in their career now, focus on how you are growing every day. Easier said than
Yeah.
done. But as an entrepreneur, I can tell you that there are no titles, there are no career
Mm.
movements, right? I am
Mm.
the MD of the company. So where am I going after this? Apart from
Mm.
growing the company, if the company has to grow, I have to grow. So as an
Yeah.
HR practitioner who moved on to launching her own tech platform, had to learn tech, had to learn finance, had to learn fundraise, had to learn what cap tables look like, right?
Yeah.
And I learned it when I was in my late 40s.
Mm.
And today I
Mm.
look back, I mean, I think the person who worked in a city or a NatWest was a different person than a
Yeah.
person leading QS. And I think I've
Absolutely.
grown as a professional. So I think
Yeah.
the internal benchmarking is very important when you're
Yes.
navigating career. Question is, who is your benchmark? Yourself
Absolutely.
or the outside world? And there's nothing right or wrong about it. I think
Yeah.
as you're going in early careers, you're probably benchmarking externally, and that's fine too. But from mid to senior, I think people start to shift their benchmarks.
Yes. And just flipping that entire thing, I've also seen people, because the comparison is not with self, the comparison is with the peers. So what becomes more important sometimes for people is that I should continue to grow in my career, or I should continue to sort of be ahead of my peers. Whether or not my role is expanding or not, it does not matter. Now, when somebody comes into that kind of a mindset, I think it's they're digging a grave for themselves, because because vertical growth, again, I would say, cannot be possible if you don't have the role to support it, or you don't have the horizontal, like I said, the growth to support it. And to your point, if people think that they're learning, they're evolving, whether or not they see career growth or not, I think such people are much more contented with themselves, whether they're in a corporate job or an entrepreneur, or an entrepreneurial role. I think they're much more contented with themselves because the benchmark is internal and not external. So I totally agree with that point, and it's a beautiful takeaway for the audience here, that the comparison should be with myself. What am I learning every year? What are the skills that are getting added to my kitty? How am I evolving as a person? And when you see that happening year on year, that's the real growth. And I think somewhere it again translates at a later date, definitely to a career growth, whether in whatever stream you are in. So it all adds up eventually.
That's true. Agree.
Great, great. Um, you're an author also, Anuranjita. Talking about that journey, first of all, how did it happen? And you've spoken a lot in your books. You've spoken a lot about inclusion.
Hmm.
So, and inclusion, honestly, is a buzzword today. So, from your experience, what's how can inclusion be made tangible and not just a buzzword? And how can leaders ensure that inclusion translates into measurable business outcomes? So, it's two questions for you wrapped into one. One is how did you start with your author journey, and
Right.
second about this inclusion part.
So I think let me start with inclusion. Okay.
Hmm,
And I think let me share a story. I think I
hmm,
was once in a boardroom where a CEO proudly announced that the company had signed a pledge to support women leaders, right?
hmm,
And which meant that we are obviously having Women's Day. There were glossy posters, powerful speeches, even a photo
hmm,
shoot, hashtag. And 6 months later, the number
hmm,
hadn't moved, right? They put the
hmm,
money behind it. Attrition was still high amongst women. Promotions hadn't shifted. Engagement scores looked the same. Question was why?
hmm,
Because I think the intent hadn't penetrated and had not been celebrated, and action, sorry, the intent had been celebrated, but the actionables weren't measured.
hmm,
So I think, personally for me and also at VAS, we encourage leaders to link, excuse me, inclusion directly to outcomes. For example,
hmm,
when companies participate in leadership programs, we just don't ask how many people attended, how many women you hired, how many women of those attended. We ask how many of them advanced after a few months.
hmm,
How did
hmm,
it affect team performance,
hmm,
innovation, customer satisfaction? And
hmm.
suddenly, then inclusion becomes a driver of strategy, not a side project. There's one
Right.
program we run which is about inclusive leadership. Okay.
Hmm,
And in this program, we talk about leadership. What is the definition of leadership? Leadership is leading a group of people who are obviously not similar to each other
hmm,
towards an organization goal in the context of organization
hmm.
through highest productivity, right?
Yeah.
Men are not similar, women are not similar. Now, if a leader is used to working with a certain genre of people, it could
Hmm,
be gender, it could be state, it could be race, then by
hmm,
default, you're not maximizing human resources given to you for productivity of the
hmm.
organization. So, how are you a
Yeah.
leader, right? You are
Yeah.
only using 50% of the team to achieve the goals. So how
Hmm,
is going to fructify? So I think, the whole inclusion has to be really, really woven. And
hmm,
very often that's how I explain it to leaders. It's not about just the environment. It is not about
hmm,
extra work for men to include women. It's not about women wanting, please, can somebody help me? It's about how to
hmm,
maximize productivity through inclusion. So one
hmm,
client once came back to us and said, that your coaching just did not help our women leaders step up. It helped us
hmm,
open new market opportunities because we
hmm,
have different voices, different perspectives,
hmm,
and it changed the
hmm,
way we solve problems. Let me give an
hmm,
example, right? If you
hmm,
look at a car company, okay, and you
hmm,
look at seat belts, simple thing, right? How does a pregnant woman tie seat belts,
hmm.
right? When she's 8, 9 months
Yeah.
pregnant, she ties
Yeah.
it in the back because that's what I did. It's very
Hmm.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that by default is
And it
negating,
doesn't solve the purpose. Yeah.
you're negating the safety feature, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know that most of the cars
Hmm.
experimented or are
Hmm.
tested on a bot or a body which is 70 kgs and 5'10", which is by default a
Hmm.
male body. More women die in accidents, right?
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
know that in the pharma industry, most medicines by default are tested on men, especially for
Males.
heart diseases, than women? More
Hmm.
women die of heart diseases than men, right? So there are lots
Hmm.
of this data which is out there.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
unless you have women doing research or you have more women included in mechanical testing, product features are not going to change. So
Yeah.
this is not very simply about saying, oh, let's do inclusion, let's make women feel better working in the workforce, but there is a business case in a real way. So I can go on
mm,
with these examples, and there's a very good book which I really like is Invisible Women, which you should read. There are a lot of examples. I mean, even if you look at iPhone
mm,
17, 16, which has arrived, right? So I
17.
have an
Yeah.
iPhone. Yeah. So this is the iPhone, right?
Mm,
Which I'm holding. Now, how do I type? I can't type
mm,
with one finger. I have to
mm,
use both my hands. This
mm,
phone is made for a
mm,
male hand, not for a woman hand.
mm,
Because we women will have smaller hands. So if I have to,
mm,
like my husband can use a phone and type with
mm,
a thumb or a finger. I
mm,
can't.
mm,
It's too big for
mm,
me to hold it, right? So
mm,
I'm talking about product features. I'm talking
mm,
about areas which segment population. And again, we're talking inclusion of only from a gender lens right now. I mean, we can
mm,
go to the race lens, which will look at it differently. So I think not making this a big debate, but inclusion is just about, from a business perspective, what are the diversity of opportunities that I can tap into? That's how I would look at it.
mm.
That
Awesome.
then says, okay, what kind of hiring I need to do? And then
Yeah.
it goes into what kind of environment I need to have. I think
Yeah.
very often today in the industry, we kind of tick the box about, okay, we need to have so many percentage, and that I
Yeah.
think to another extreme, which has a different reaction from taking the example of gender from men. Women
Yeah.
walk away, too many policies, too much pampering, that sometimes has a negative fallout, right? So I
Mm.
think inclusion is with a big I. It starts with me. It starts with
Yeah.
who am I and how I need to, work at it. So here is the kicker. People watch what leaders measure.
Mm.
When a CEO tracks revenue, the whole organization rallies around revenue.
Mm.
Leader tracks
True.
inclusion with the purpose of maximizing business profitability, then not attendance at a workshop, but actual retention, progression, and innovation is measured, and that's how the culture shifts. So, one tangible
Absolutely.
action is make inclusion part of the scorecard, measure it,
Mm.
reward, and talk
Mm.
about it in the same breath to drive your business result.
Yeah.
Not a charity, it's a strategy. And when it gets measured, in my view, it just gets multiplied.
Awesome. I think that's a very, very balanced approach again, which is not only advocating inclusion but also reflecting the business advantages that can come out of if you really follow inclusion to the T. And I think inclusion in itself is a full circle. I've worked with clients who take a lot of pride in saying that this is our diversity percentage or this is the inclusion percentage that we have. But if you dig deep into those numbers, most of the positions are replacements. Okay, which
Mhm.
means that there is an attrition there, right? And that does not get highlighted. And so if you dig deeper, so point is inclusion is not just about hiring numbers. I think it's about creating an ecosystem also where those numbers stay with you, and which could be about having policies that support that kind of a culture. Now if you're as an organization, if you're averse to a work from home culture, let's say, and there are organizations like that, there are leaders like that, how can you have a diversity? How can you have women leaders at senior positions, new moms coming in? They will have to take a break because you're not supporting them enough. So I feel that inclusion has to be a full circle. It cannot be just talked about in numbers. It has to be backed up by a complete culture that is ready for this kind of an inclusion. And I think measure as far as the measurement is concerned, spot on. I think unless and until it is included in the scorecard, there is no other way, and that's been my experience, and that's my own opinion. There is no other way that it becomes the DNA of the organization unless and until it is included in the scorecard.
Right. So your second question was about the author in me.
Yes, yes.
So my journey as author began not with the desire to write a book, but
Mm,
weights of lots of questions that I couldn't ignore. I genuinely believe
mm,
that, everyone has a book in you. So do you, Shivani, right? I mean, finally, we are talking of a narrative, of a reality that we've all lived. And we're
yeah.
telling our own story, our own perspective. I'm not a fiction writer. But my narrative is very storytelling. It's based on the experiences that I've gone through in real life. So
Mm,
I think the first book, which was, Can I Have It All? It came
mm,
from the fact that, it came from another deeply personal place. being a woman, being a mother, being a wife, being, coming from a family where we were two girls, and what did we go through? And after years of chasing ambition,
Mm,
titles, and cool roles, I hit a point where the question got louder: at what
mm,
cost? For me as a woman, and
mm,
who am I beyond the designation? Can ambition and joy coexist? And the book was my attempt to be very vulnerable, to
mm,
share not just a polished version of the success, but also the
mm,
messy and the human one. I
mm.
in Can I Have It All? Also spoke to a lot of women, and I've narrated their story to say, hey, it isn't about very senior women
Yeah,
role models. I mean, we'll all look up to Indra Nooyi and so forth, so on. But it's about women like us, right?
yeah,
It's there is an extraordinary in the ordinary.
yeah.
And sometimes when
Absolutely.
you look at very senior leaders, you're like, oh my God, they are like way there, up there, right?
Mm,
I can't get there. So I wanted
mm,
this book to be something which a normal reader can do and think, yeah, this is me. I
mm,
resonate with it. I resonate
mm,
with what's happening with this lady. And I think if she handled it like this and I handle
mm,
it like this, maybe I will find a way to do it. So I think
mm,
it came from the place of me going through my journey as a woman in a,
mm,
financial services world. The
mm,
second one, I think for years I had sat in global boardrooms. I'd carried two
mm,
truths inside me. One was the
mm.
pride of being there, even though I was a woman from a small town in India, representing voices which weren't heard. The other was the quiet ache of being the only woman, right? The only Indian and the only
That's
person
the
of
real
color.
one. Mm,
Okay. So
mm,
when I
mm,
wrote Color Matters, it was less about
mm.
the book, it was more about holding up a mirror, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how do identity, bias,
Mm,
belonging shape our careers? And it was again a book about what is a minority perspective. And this could be true in
mm.
India. I mean, in India, there are different sets of biases: North India, South India. We are a
Yeah,
secular country. I'm not going to
yeah,
mix religion into color. They're
yeah,
two very different things. But
yeah.
let's be real that, we yet have a white Gora hangover in India versus brown, or somebody who's of a darker skin. I'm certainly more brown than my husband, right? So how does that play out in the society, not
Mm,
workplace? If you go
mm.
abroad, and you speak differently, you look different, and being a minority, you feel it. You are
Yeah.
different and you have to assert yourself more. How do you push forward with that? So that's what color
Mm,
matters. And most of my book are a question mark, because they are about sharing a perspective. They're not a prescriptive book. And I
mm,
tend to bring in views and perspectives of different people so that we learn from each other. So for me, writing was both cathartic and
mm.
responsibility, right?
Awesome.
Cathartic because it allowed me to process the doubts and
Express.
the times of my own journey.
Yeah.
Uh, Responsibility because I knew even if I made a difference to one woman, one professional who read my words and felt seen, then it was worth it. And
Mm,
then, the reflection I carry today is that I get a lot of incomings on LinkedIn, especially on Can
mm,
I Have It All,
mm,
how it resonated. I carry today is
mm.
that stories change us more than stats ever can, right? As a
Yeah.
leader, I had policies, I had numbers,
Mm,
uh, but as an author, I had words that in many ways
yeah.
could touch the hearts, shift perspectives, and plant different seeds of change. So when I look
Mm,
back, I don't just see myself as a professional who wrote books. I see a
mm,
woman who needed to pause, to
mm,
ask uncomfortable questions loudly, and to
mm,
remind others and herself that ambition, identity, and inclusion
mm,
are not abstract concepts. They're
mm,
lived, they're breathed, and they're deeply personal. And maybe that's why I'll always keep writing, because the journey is still unfolding and the questions are still worth asking. I'm doing my
mm.
third book actually right now after 5 years,
Okay.
and it's yet work in progress. So when it comes out, we'll surely
Great.
talk about that. But I didn't write books to add it to myself. I wrote them to
Mm,
take weight of silence off my chest, and I
mm.
hope that it takes off. It takes the weight of somebody else too.
That's so awesome. And that's a very honest reflection of what inspired you to become an author. A lot of people say, I wanted to share my story. A lot of people wanted to, a lot of people who are from corporates who write books, write it from the perspective of sharing their story and inspiring others. So it's about others. But I think you're the first person that I've heard saying that it was for me, that I wanted to take that weight off my chest and I wanted to write down. And I think that's a very, very fresh perspective and a very different perspective by any author. And absolutely looking forward to your third book. Very, very excited to know what it is about, if you don't mind giving a sneak peek into it.
A different, slightly different take on entrepreneurship. So more
Okay.
to come.
Okay. Great. Looking forward. Great. This segment was obviously a lot of meat, a lot of food for thought. Thanks for sharing your insights, Anuranjita. So, the final sign off, again, a fun rapid fire for you. So, if you could gift one career mantra as maybe a fortune cookie, okay,
Mm.
to every young professional, what would the message be inside that cookie in one line?
Oh, that's such a lovely question. My God. Okay. I think in line with what I've said, stop running the race, start running
Mm,
your story. That would be the mantra. Because I think no one
superb.
remembers who finished second or third in a race, but everyone
Yeah.
remembers the story that changed them.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, superb. And that brings us to the end of a very thought-provoking episode of Coffee and Careers. Anuranjita, a huge thanks to you for sharing your journey so candidly and for reminding us that reinvention is always possible at no matter where you are in your career, at whatever age you are, it's only about taking that leap of faith. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of corporate professionals today who are waiting with uncertainty to make that jump, to the other side of the table and take a plunge into something what I call as the roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship. So thank you for doing that. And to our
But I
audience,
wanted to
thank
thank you as well, Shivani, because I think, um, you reached out and we connected and we talked, and I was absolutely in awe of your journey as well. The fact that you were
thank
able
you.
to take a jump, believe in your own convictions about what you wanted to do, and doing it with gusto, energy, making your voice heard. So I just say keep it going and well done, you.
Thank you so much. And that's a real woman lifting the other real woman. That's a real leader. Let me tell you that. That's the quality of a real woman leader. Thank you so much for your kind words. Audience, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it, follow us, follow the podcast. Stay tuned for more leaders. There are more power packed leaders and speakers coming your way in season two. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep your coffee strong. Thank you. See you in episode 3 soon.